Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SoCap Improv Comedy Podcast. My name is Ralph. Ralph McLeod. I'm an improv teacher and performer based in Toronto. I own and am the artistic director at the SoCap Comedy Theater on 154 Danforth Avenue, second floor and third floor above the Black Swan Tavern, where we do improv classes and shows all the time. Yeah, and I've been an improv teacher for 30 plus years. Like 30 plus years. Yeah. That's right. Oh my God. Crazy. Anyway, talk about various topics and things relating to improv, and especially how improv can be used to enhance your everyday life, or enhance is a good way of putting it, or change your defaults. If there are things that you do in your everyday life that you're upset or fed up with and you want to change things about that, improv is a really good tool for looking at ways to change behavior, learn new skills. Get out of your comfort zone is something that people say a lot when they come to my classes, but my feeling is I don't want to get out of my comfort zone, but I would like to push up against the edges of it and expand it so that I broaden it, and that things that might have one point lain outside of my comfort zone are now within it. But there's an expression, seeking discomfort. I like that because that's improv allows you to do that in a safe way. Try out things that we can't do in real life, but we can do on an improv stage. Like being entitled, acting like a spoiled brat, being a narcissist, yelling at somebody. It's really fun to get on a stage or in a class and yell at another human being in a way where there's no intent to be mean, but it's just really, really fun. It's also really fun to get yelled at in a way when it's not real. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about how improv can help with conflict. Dispelling conflict or tension with the use of humor, or handling different kinds of scenarios. So I had a student a couple years ago who came to me. She was a woman in her, I'm going to say, early 30s. And she had recently started working at a company, a smallish company, and actually all of the senior people that she worked with were all men who were 50 and up. So here she is in this, not youngish, young 30-year-old woman in a room with good old boys. And she came to me and she said, well, the problem is that they get in that room and they kind of just don't even acknowledge that I'm there. And so they'll talk about things that are uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah, sure. I totally understand that. Being of that age, I understand that, the world has changed a lot. And some people, I think, in my opinion, some people have changed a lot, but there's still a long way for those people to go, or some people to go. Anyway, the point is, she was uncomfortable, and that's fine. I'm fine in that. That's her point of view. That's valid. And so that has to be dealt with. And she was like, how can I deal with that? And my advice to her was, we have to call it out. What's going on? The thing that's making you uncomfortable. And the one thing my advice is to avoid is somehow blaming everybody else for your discomfort, or being accusatory, or in any way that will make people defensive. A good way to deal with this is through the use of humor. So what I suggested was the next time that you're in that room and they're there and they say something, just say something like, hey, everybody, like, we're all men here, right? And smile and say it in a way that points out the fact that you are not. And that you're not all men, and by saying we're all dudes here, right? So, and that way we all have a good laugh. They can all have a good laugh about it, but it does resonate. So it calls out attention to what's going on, but it in no way shames anybody or accuses anybody or puts anybody in a defensive position. It's more, by using humor, by using good nature, by also like eating it yourself. Like I'll take the hit, so no one feels pressured or under the gun or anything like that. I can make my point, and we can all learn from it and go forward. So she tried that, and she reported back to me that it worked like a charm. That we had a good laugh about it, we had a discussion about it, and after that, things got much better. People were more, I guess, aware of when I was in the room, and were more careful about some of the things they said. Great. Um, I myself, so that's using humor. Also the use of yes. Yes and is a great way to dispel conflict. In my own life, at one point, I had moved into a new house, and the previous tenants had emptied some of their contents and had left it on my yard and also what was my neighbor's yard. And I had literally just moved in, just unloading the rest of the truck, and then this knock came on my door. When I say a knock, I mean a bang. Like this guy was banging on my door, and I opened the door and I said hello. And this guy was he was an old guy, and he was very unpleasant, and he was just like, "Look at this. This is not right." And he was like gesturing and pointing to all the stuff that was on his lawn. And he wanted me to do one of two things: yell back at him, or cower and say like, "Oh my God, you're so right. What can I do to make this up to you?" So that's called complimentary behavior. Like it's a compliment. So compliment in that, not a compliment isn't like a nice thing to say to somebody, but it's expected. That's the expected response. Someone comes at you, yell. The expectation is either you'll yell back, go to hell, or you'll cower. Oh, hey, what can I do to make it right? But there's another way to respond to that, and that is the non-complimentary way, and it's to say yes. And I was like, you know what? You absolutely are right. You have a total point. You're right. That's garbage. This is wrong. And I pulled out my cell phone and I said, do you want me to call the police, or do you want to call them? And then we'll sort this out. And he just went, no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all right. Nope, no problem. And he went away. And that was the end of that. And a couple days later, the old owners came and cleaned up everything. It was fine. I never heard another word from him. And after that, the guy treated me like a sweetheart. Because when someone comes at you and they're yelling at you, they're rude, whatever, what do they want? They want to upset you, right? They want to affect you in some way. And so you just say, nope, you have no power here. You can't affect me. So, and yes, we'll do that. So if someone says, you're a real jerk, you're like, you betcha I am. You have no idea what kind of poisonous person I am. And they often will just disappear because they don't know how to deal with it. I've had lots of, times in my life when people have been rude to me, and I just look at them and smile and go like, sure, tell me more. I mean, the first thing that is it just dispels the tension, because the person who's yelling at you you're reacting to them in a way that they're not used to, and they don't understand what's going on, and so they feel very unsure, and so they tend to just go away. Now, when it comes to conflict, just in general, improv is great for dispelling conflict for a number of reasons. Number one of the hallmarks of improv is listening. So when you listen to somebody who's upset or has conflict, my feeling is maybe they have a point. Maybe they have a legitimate problem, and I should listen to it. Maybe not, but I'm going to start from there. Okay, so I'm going to listen, right? And then depending on what it is, if I want to agree with it, I'll say yes, I hear you. And then let's deal with this together. So let's take your problem and let's make it our problem, and we'll solve it together. So another hallmark of improv is empathy, is understanding other people's journeys, the journey of someone else who's not like you at all, and sort of, and while you could never really, to use the Native American expression, walk a mile in another person's moccasins, you can at least, appreciate or understand in some way that is how they might feel about something, that something might be difficult or challenging. Okay, all right, or someone that comes from a very different background than you, like just understanding, okay, my experience is not the universal experience. there are different viewpoints. So empathy. So first we listen and we empathize. We try to say yes. Yes is a default. And then the other thing about making the problem our problem is that we're now thinking about solutions, not focused on the problem. We're collaborating in a way to solve the problem. And that can handle a lot of conflict or rudeness or uh, anger. It can really go a long way. Because when it comes to anger, mostly what people want is to be heard or any kind of emotion. Another example of my life is you I have a 9-year-old daughter. When she was 5, she came to me and she said, "Dad, I don't want to go to school." And I said, "Why? What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I'm scared." Now, most parents in that situation would gaslight their kids and say, "There's nothing to be scared of," right? That's what we would say, because from us, there is nothing to be scared of, and we've had an experience. But what we're saying to them is that your experience is not legitimate. Your feelings are not legitimate. Your viewpoint is not valid. That's gaslighting, right? We're telling them that what they feel is not accurate or right, and we know better. So what I said to her was like, "Yeah, of course, school is terrifying. It's full of adults. There's that kid that bites. Oh my God, it's a walking war zone in that place." Anyway, she laughed and said, "Dad, you're silly." And I said, "Get your coat." And we went to school. I gave her a chance to be heard. I validated her feelings. And that's all she really needed, was to be heard and to be understood and listened to. And I didn't argue with her. And then I took her to school, and we were a bit late because that took some time. And the principal asked her why she was late. And Loni, my daughter, told her, "Well, I don't want to come to school because I was scared." And the principal said, "There's nothing to be scared of." And I wanted to throttle it because, we gaslight people all the time. And I mean, and we do it with the best of intentions. It's not like parents who say to their children, "There's no monster under your bed." It comes from a good place. We're trying to, calm them. We're trying to ease them. It's the same with friends who are distraught, who are going through a breakup. And we say, "There's lots of fish in the sea." Like, we're trying to make things better. It comes from a good place. But what we're saying is that your feelings are not valid. And that's not helpful. When people call up crisis workers and they are distraught, the crisis workers don't say, "You're full of baloney. There's, life is great. Don't do something rash." They're like, yeah, I get it. It's tough out there. And it is tough out there. That's absolutely true. But to tell people that their feelings aren't valid is not helping anything. So improv, when you get on stage, you get in my class, that's a big thing we focus on, because it tends to happen where two people are in a scene and character A expresses some opinion. "I feel like you don't love me anymore," right? And most improv students, most scenes, the reply to that is, "What are you talking about? Of course I love you." Right? We gaslight and so in improv, you get a chance to not gaslight, to listen and respond, not to change someone's mind, but to accept the way they feel and then deal with that, right? "I feel like you don't love me anymore." Response: "Well, that's because I don't." Well done. You figured it out. You horrible person. So you can accept it and play like an evil person, play a villain or a narcissist or high status. These are all options. Or you can accept it and play low status. "I feel you don't love me anymore. I'm sorry you feel that way. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. What's going on? Let's work together to solve that problem." That's the empathic route. Also works very well in an improv scene. It may not be as fun or as full of laughs, or it doesn't lead to yelling at somebody, but it's still a very legitimate way to deal with that. And improv will let you role play all these things, to come in and deal with conflict, to be an aggressor, to be someone who's attacked, to reply back with yelling, or to reply back by showing weakness, doing your defaults or the opposite defaults, and then also trying the parental way or the non-complimentary way as a way to dispel tension. Speaking of non-complimentary behavior, you'll see this, with stand-ups, the way they handle hecklers, right? That's what they'll do. And so you can use non-complimentary behavior in a way to shut down conversations, to open it up. Improv will show you how to respond in a way to get people to like you more or to not perceive you as a threat. And by threat, now I mean a threat to the ego. Anyway, this has been another episode of the SoCap Improv Comedy Podcast. Hope to see you again. Bye.